And no doubt, as I mentioned before, you would have seen by now that Woolworths and Big W have decided not to sell any Australia Day related merchandise this year. And as we go to air tonight, Aldi says they will do the same. Now, you can do what you want. Businesses can do what they want. You can sell whatever you do or don't want to sell. It's a free market. But the great thing about the free market is that we get to decide where we shop. And so I'd say to you, if you're not happy with Woolworths' decision or Aldi's decision to cast off our National Day, to not celebrate our great country, then take your custom elsewhere. Opposition leader Peter Dutton said the same thing earlier today.
I think it's an outrage, to be honest, and I think people should boycott Woolworths. I would advise very strongly to take your business elsewhere, to go to IGA or Coles or Aldi. And I think until we get common sense out of a company like Woolworths, I don't think they should be supported by the public.
Now, I know we do have a supermarket duopoly in this country, so it does make it difficult to shop elsewhere. But I'm glad to say that Coles will be selling Australia-themed products in time for Australia Day, so go shop there. Or better yet, shop at your local IGA or another small business, which in all likelihood could be owned by migrants working hard to make a go of things in this country. That's what Australia is all about. That's what Australia Day is all about, celebrating. And I know a lot of people think, well, I'm just one person, a small cog in the wheel. What difference will it make if I take my dollar elsewhere? But we've learned in the past year that boycotts against woke companies can work. Remember when American beer brand Bud Light decided to use transgender TikToker Dylan Mulvaney to promote its product?
Hi. Impressive carrying skills, right? I got some Bud Lights for us. So, I kept hearing about this thing called March Madness, and I thought we were all just having a hectic month, but it turns out it has something to do with sports. And I'm not sure exactly which sport, but either way, it's a cause to celebrate. This month, I celebrated my Day 365 of womanhood, and Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it.
Day 365 of womanhood. God help us. Now, thankfully, Mulvaney seems to have faded back into obscurity, but so did Bud Light after all of that, because beer drinkers turned off them. Their parent company's revenue dropped by more than 10% in 3 months, and the next quarter, their sales to retailers dropped 17%. Then in November, their chief marketing officer left the company for bungling things so badly. So don't think that you as a consumer can't call the shots. Without consumers, businesses are dead. You ultimately hold the power to hire and fire because it's your dollars that pay these people. But take a look at Agriculture Minister Murray Watt today on some bizarre rant about culture wars and thongs and, well, take a look for yourself.
Our government is focused on the war on inflation. Peter Dutton is always focused on a culture war. Our government is focused on the prices that supermarkets charge. Peter Dutton is focused on the kind of thongs that supermarkets sell. Peter Dutton is focused on putting the jobs of more than 200,000 workers at risk just so he can score a cheap political point on a radio station. But this is just typical of Peter Dutton. As I say, always negative, always seeking to divide people, always shouting at Australians, rather than actually bringing people together to tackle the real challenges that matter to Australians, like cost of living and the kind of prices that supermarkets charge. You can see from the actions our government announced yesterday, that's our focus when it comes to supermarkets. The prices that people are paying, the cost of living pressures that Australians are fixing. We're not focused on the kind of thongs that supermarkets sell, the kind of T-shirts the supermarkets sell. We'll leave that kind of negativity and division to Peter Dutton while we get on with the things that really matter to Australians.
Yawn. Seriously. And by the way, one of our viewers, Justin Thomas, sent me this photo today of Chinese New Year merchandise on sale at the Southport Woolies on the Gold Coast. Some countries' celebrations are worth making a buck out of, just not ours, apparently. Now, according to Woolworths, they're not stocking anything because, quote, there has been a gradual decline in demand for Australia Day merchandise from our stores over recent years. At the same time, there's been broader discussion about 26 January and what it means to different parts of the community. I don't buy that for a minute. I mean, there are some people who don't support Australia Day, sure, but the majority do. Roy Morgan polling last year found 64% of people supported January 26 being Australia Day, which was virtually unchanged from the results the year before. So this decline Woolworths points to is nonsense. The decline, if it happened at all, happened years ago, but Woolies chooses not to stock items now and has to make a point about a broader discussion about the date. This isn't about what consumers are or are not buying. If this decline in sales exists, then show us the numbers. Show us your sales for the past 5 years and how much stock you had in your stores in those years. Something tells me they won't do that because it's about a big corporate trying to dictate morality and social policy to the rest of us. They're not responding to a decline, they're trying to create the decline. Because, of course, the harder you make it to buy things to celebrate Australia Day, then the harder the celebration becomes. That's the point. It's a deliberate ploy to make you feel guilty for celebrating our National Day. People see big companies and journalists and the media peddling all this stuff about how Australia Day's on the nose, and they start scratching their heads and thinking, heck, am I out of touch here? Am I the odd one out in wanting to celebrate my country? Well, you're not. All the polling shows that you're not. You're in the majority. But all the people who've taken control of the message in the public discourse are trying to convince you otherwise. It was the same with The Voice. Pretty much every big company from Cape York to Wilson's Promontory backed The Voice and gave the campaign millions and millions of dollars. And if you watched all of that, you might have thought you were some kind of leper or in the minority for wanting to vote no. But of course, we know what the result of that was. It wasn't the public that was out of touch. It was the big companies. They tried to tell us what to do. We told them to stick it. And that's exactly what needs to happen to Woolworths and Aldi. We are not the outliers here. You are. We're not going to take this self-loathing rubbish from you. And fancy a big supermarket, like Woolworths in particular, trying to lecture us about morality. They turned a record profit last year, $1.6 billion. And meanwhile, farmers are getting paid less while you pay more. And if you want to do something good for the country, use some of those massive profits to pay farmers a bit more, instead of telling us what public holidays we should celebrate.